I think even before I started my research, I took a graduate assistantship in my department, just to, um, get me grounded in a number of things. We had this grant, which was for us to do the cataloging of some objects in the collection of the Institute of African Studies. And it was part of my duty at that time to make conscious classification of the pieces that we had. But in doing that, I also had to do extensive library work, to familiarize myself with what has been written about those pieces, if um, anything at all had been published, and then also to find provenance, for those objects, because some were collected haphazardly, and others, were consciously, acquired, and some were gifts. So I started that job, and I remember very well what my late supervisor at that time, said, Professor Adekweba, that, jokingly said I should get myself lost in the library, in quotes, So I found that to mean that every book that I touched that had something to do with what I was, researching on, I had to leave no page unturned. I had to go from leaf to leaf, to the end. And I quite enjoyed, doing that work, especially because, the library was not so far away from the museum where I had to sit, to actually look at the various objects. I made inventory of the pieces, and it was like I was having daily conversations with those objects. Very interesting, pieces. I developed, great passion, for interacting with those objects, and great passion for seeking knowledge about them, and for, I felt that I was contributing something also to the system, by looking for data, to match with the images, and it was such an interesting exercise for me. So he said, well, I could go, out to just make preliminary investigation if they would be um, willing to, have conversations, with me, and then I could, go on from there. Yeah, I didn't spend 2 days thinking about it. I simply, went to town the following day. Had my backpack, had my camera, had my tape recorder. I just, looked for the addresses, given to me. I went from one place to the other. I was fortunate to meet such such forthcoming artists, to actually have conversations about their work with. They were very responsive, very open. They opened their studio to me every time, night and day. I would just go visit. I also became a participant observer, watching them, do their work. But the journey into doing research was not just limited to visiting the ateliers in Ibadan. Had to go to other spaces because their work is not done in isolation of other, traditions existing in other locations. Essentially, I had to study this family of woodcarvers, the Fake family, and locate them within the context of, the entire assemblage of, Yoruba art. And then also look at Yoruba art in relation to African art. So it was like, okay, you are doing, a case study, but the case study is not done in isolation as the thing. So that took me to other locations where wood carving was practiced in Yoruba land. So it's not only, from textbooks that we discover, knowledges or information. Even from, the field, you gain so much that you will not normally find on the pages of a book.